Shabbat shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom to everyone who is here in person, which we're so excited to see everybody. Old friends, new friends, old-timers, we're great to see you. We're so glad to have you with us on this special, special occasion of Shabbat and also wonderful bat mitzvah. And everybody who's at home and other places in the ether, we're glad to have you too. Your souls are with us too. We're celebrating together and holding you in our hearts. So we're going to begin our prayers on page 103 in the red Sidurim. You'll find a link next to the live stream for those at home who are watching. Of course, there's Hebrew and English. There's transliteration of the Hebrew and English letters. Feel free to pray, whatever language comes to you. We'll guide you. It's a journey, chance to be basically grateful, chance to breathe in, breathe out, feel the Holy One's presence, and just take a moment to cherish the moments that we have. Thank God. So we rise together. We begin with blessings of gratitude, page 103. In the red Sidurim, we rise together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sachvi bina l'afchimenu muben layla.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher asani betzalmo.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani bat chorim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher asani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokev gefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam המכין מצעדי גבר.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשה לי כה צורכי.
Amen. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוזי סל בגבורה.
Amen. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוטר ישראל בתפארה.
Amen. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם הנותן לי אהב כוח.
Amen.
122.
ברוך
שעבר העולם ברוך הוא. ברוך עושה בראשים, ברוך מבשם, ברוך עושה מקיים, ברוך מלכים ברוך מלך שמור, ברוך למלך העולם.
יחיד חלמים מלך משובח ומפרדי עד שמו הגדול. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מהולל ותשבחו.
Amen. You may be seated.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
shalom. Shabbat shalom.
So good to be together on Shabbat and also to celebrate with the winter mishpacha. This week's Torah portion is Behar Bechukotai. It's sort of a double Torah portion. Our bat mitzvah will teach us about this parsha later on this morning. But I wanted to offer as a kavanah, as a sort of intention for our davening this morning, that one of the things that arises in this week's Torah reading is the idea of the Shemitah. And there's actually a connection between the Shemitah and Shabbat. So the Shemitah is the year every 7 years, according to our ancient text, and even to some degree now, in which we are commanded to let the land lie fallow. Also, all debts would be sort of erased, and all people who were serving as indentured servants, which existed in ancient times, would be released. So it was just a total release. Similarly, on Shabbat, we also do a kind of rest and release. We don't work. Traditionally, we don't spend money. We disconnect from all those things that connect us to these very human constructs of possession and money and ownership. And so it's a powerful reminder even if we don't necessarily all observe Shemitah or Shabbat in the most traditional sense, that part of the beauty of Shabbat is just to take some time to remember that we're not in control, that people don't belong to us, that our money really isn't ours, at least not in the fullest sense. We certainly don't leave this world with it. And to sort of throw up our hands, if not physically, on the inside, and just allow ourselves to release and know that it's not all in our control. So I hope that whether you're following along with the formal davening or just taking moments of quiet reflection, that you give yourself the permission, I know I will, to just feel the relief of knowing that none of it is ours. It's not ours to control. And we can just be here with what is and know that there's something greater kind of holding us all together. So we're going to continue with Psukei de Zimra, with verses of psalm and song to help us warm up. And we're going to continue on page 134 with a special psalm for Shabbat. Mizmor shir leyom
HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai. Mizmor shir leyom HaShabbat, zamer et shimcha elyon, להגיד בבוקר עבדך ואמונתך בלילות לאסור ועלה נבל עלי היגיון בחינור. ישמח בולך מעשה דחנן מגדלו מעשה חייו מוגן גושודך ישבלם צדיקתם היפרח
עוד ינון בסבבה דשני
רענני יהיו להגיד
ישר
אדוני צורי ולא רעתו.
We continue now with Ashrei Yoshvei Vetecha, page 136, focusing our attention on cultivating the quality of osher, of contentment, of equanimity, allowing ourselves to rest in acceptance of ourselves and each other exactly as we are. Ashrei Yoshvei Vetecha od yalu chasela.
אשרי עם שככה לו, אשרי עם שרנה
תהילה
אלוהיו.
ודוד, עמך אלוהי המלך, וברכה שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך ועלה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול ומונן מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר.
דור דור ישבח מעשיך וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבודותיך ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
ועזוז נורותיך יאמרו דלתך ספרנה.
זכר אב טובך יביאו וצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ורחום אדוני רחפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודו חרני כל מעשיך וחסידיך יברכוך.
לבוד מלכותך יאמרו גבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך ממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך לכל הנופלים, זוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיניך לך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידיך, מסביר לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב הרי לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקרו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיע.
שומר נא את כל אוהביו, את כל רשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר בי, ויברך כל בשר, שם קודשו לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך ידיו ירעליו. Hallelujah.
Page 141, we chant Psalm 150. We say the word nishama, which means soul, which is also the same word as nishima, breath. So it's really an invitation, not only in this moment, but throughout our tefillah, just to sit and breathe and feel our aliveness. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. El bikocho, hallelujah, kiauzo, hallelujah, vigorata, hallelujah, rogulo, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. בתק השופר, הללו, בנבל וכינור, הללו, בתוף ומחול, הללו, ובמינים בעוגב. הללויה, 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 הללויה. בצלצל שמע, הללו, בצלצל תרועה, כל הנשמה דהלליה, כל הנשמה דהלליה. הללויה, 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 הללויה.
We take a deep breath, neshima amuka, as we prepare for Nishmat Kol Chai, page 141. 145.
Bottom 146.
מלך ומי ישלח ומי יערוך לך אל הגדול הגיבור והנורא
אל עליון
בונה שמיים בארץ נעלה לך נשבחך נפארך נברך את שם קודשך כאמור
לדוד מלכי נשיר נאי
בכל קרבי
את שם קודשו
האל ביצע צמאות עוזך
הגדול בכבוד שמך
הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך
המלך היושב על גזירם
ונישא
147 שוכן
עד
עד
מרום
וגדול
וקדוש שמו
וכתוב לנו צדיקים באדוני שם נאווה תהילה
בפי ישרים תתעלה
ודברי צדיקות תתברך
ובלשון חסידים תתרומם
ובקרב קדושים תתגדל
תתקדש
ומקלות רבבות
עמך
בית
בית ישראל
לא לשבל לפעילה
להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, לקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות.
דוד וניש, please rise.
עבדך,
148.
משיחך,
ישתבח שמך
לעד
מלך
מלכנו.
הגדול הקדוש בשמיים.
ברכות והודות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני
בשמו
המלך גדול בתשבחות אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה
מלך אל
העולמים
אמן
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
אמן
ולמד דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובמכון ובחיית כל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב ימרו
אמן ישמר רבה מבורך לעולם עמי עלמיה
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשא
בריחוה
לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה וימרו
Amen.
Amen.
149, we take a slight bow for the Baruch.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך
Baruch Adonai המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Maybe seated 150.
ברוך אתה
Baruch אתה
אדוני
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or borech Moshe עושה שלום ובורא את הכל הכל יודו הכל שבוע והכל יאמרו אין קדוש כאדוני הכל ירומם סלע יוצר הגוי ויום מוציאך במקום טובו מגדל ויודה ממעשה ושים אין ככך על דרך
אין להזכירך, אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך, מלכנו לחיי עולם. אפס פרטך גואל למות המשיח, ואין דומה לך משיענו
ליד המתים. 151.
אל אדון
הכל המעשים ברוב ומורה, בפי כל נשמה גדלו וטובו, מעלה עולם דעת ותבונה,
סובבים אותו
הרים גאה, על חיות הקודש, נראה וכבוד על המרכבה, זכור ומישור לפני זור הסר רחמים,
לפני
חבודות טובים ואורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם ודעת ובינה ובשכל כוח וגבורה נתן להם ליד עולים בקרב תבל מלאים זיו וכינוגן הזיווה העולם זכים וצאתם בששים ובואם עושים בימר קונם ויער וחמוד נונים לנמור סולה ורינה לזכר מלכותו הרד השמש ויזרח אורה והנקים הבנה שבנונים לו כל צבא מרום דיברם וגדולה סרבים ואופנים וחיות הקודש. 152. האל אשר שבה מכל המעשים ולגז כבודו תפארת מלכה עונה כאן בשבת זה שבע שמשמע טוב להודות לאדוני לפיכך יפרים נכון ימודינו עקינו ישתבח שמות. Top 153.
כולם
האומים באומים
כולם
גיבורים
וכולם
כולם עושים באימה
ובגרבה
וצעקונה
וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה
תורה
ותורה ושירה ובזמרה ומפרחים ומפארים ומניצים
מקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול בור ונורא יהושע וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה
נותנים רשות
זה לזה יוזרה
בנחת רוח בשפה ורעה
ויהי נימה אדוש העולם כאחד עונים
תמרים וירא
קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו ניר והיוד הקודש גדול עשים לעומת רבים לעומת המדים אומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ליל ברוך נעימות וחי וקיים שכל השם בראשית קמו לסיגונים ולסתום אור חדש
של ציון
תאיר
ונזכה
עולנו tzitzit together, bind them as one, to prepare for Shema Yisrael, a statement of the oneness of God. Page 154, Abba Avtan, Eloheinu Chemla Gdura V'Derachamot Aleinu Kein Techaleinu Give Hashem Kodesh.
וקרבתנו לשמך קדושה באמת, להודות לך ויחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו
הבוחר בעמו ישראל מאהבה.
בשבתך בביתך ובדרך בדרך ושופך וקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך תודפו בין עיניך וכתבתם
על מזוזות ביתך וישערך.
Continue page 156 והם שמות ישמות השלוחים השתחוויתם להם
שמו קיים וחיסון נכון ומלכותו ומלכותו
לעד קיים. 157 אמן.
שאתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו ואמותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו ואמותינו יוצא לצור ישועתנו פודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך
אין אלוהים זולתך עזרת אבותינו ואמותינו
אתה ומעולם.
אמן. Middle 158. Adonaim lo leolam. Please rise. Ay, 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 ay. Su Israel, Kuma Bezrat Israel, Uberech Meha Yehuda. Go Aleinu Adonai. Elosh Yisrael.
Baruch atah
So, Chevra, our feet together face east towards Jerusalem. Pages 159 through 161, we pray together as a congregation. Rest this prayer called the Amidah done silently. So you can either use the traditional prayers from 161 to 170, or just close your eyes and just offer prayers in your heart, gratitude of release, of letting go, thinking of those things in our life which are priceless and are a gift and a blessing that we have. So 159 to 161 together, the beginning of the Amidah, the rest is done silently.
Adonai
Zevatai divla Ya'idei ladeha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avodeinu Mimodzeinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Zara Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גמל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גוי לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ופוקד מושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה, אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחלחל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, שני עבר, מי כמוך בר גבורו, ומדום אליו, אלה ממית ומחייב, ומצמיח ישועה.
ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני
בשמו
לחיי המתים.
אמן. קדש את שמך בעולם, יש שמך שיבתו ישמרו. הגדול, אריה נביאך, וגרז אל זה, ואמר קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות אלוהי הארץ יבואו בגורל. תשפוך עלינו, כי לך אם אנחנו למה תמלוך בזיון בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד ישכון יגדל בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים בינינו תרנה מלכותך amor Egile Oleh Yedei David Messiah Tziecha Imlor Hayolam Elaich Zion Edor Vador Hallelujah.
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפלמוס לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Shalom, Bimroma, Hu Yaseh, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Amen.
167 Kaddish Shalom.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
בעלמא דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחיי חון ומחון, ובכן לכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב והימרו,
אמן. יהי שמרה ומבורא לעולם ועלמיה
יתברך,
יתברך.
יתברך, וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם וינשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתעלה על שמי קודשה.
בריחו.
לילה, מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן ולמה והימרו,
אמן.
תתקבץ לטון ובונתון לכל ישראל, קדם אבהון דבשמי והימרו,
אמן.
יהי שלום ארון שמיה, וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל והימרו,
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה
ויעשה
שלום.
שלום.
עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, והימרו,
Amen. We now turn to page 168 for the Torah service Seder Kriyat HaTorah.
אין כמוך אלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים ובשעריך
בכל דור ודור.
אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני עולם לא ייתן
אדוני
ואנו בשלום היטיבה ברצונך את ציון תבנה חומות ירושלים
כי
והלבבתנו מלך הרב ונישא עולמים
ויהי בנשוא אהרון
ויאמר משה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך
מפניך
נהרגי וציון תצא תורה גי וציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך ונתן תורה תורה ברוך ונתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. So 171, our bat mitzvah leads us responsively in Shema Yisrael. Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu,
Gadol Adonenu, Kavod Shema.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol
Adonenu,
I'll turn towards you. Oh, Shemo, Gadlul Adonai iti, Onerom ema Shemo Yagdam, Leha Adonai Agedul. Someone close the arm. Someone closes the arm. Ve'nitet, Nage Ahoi, Ol HaShamayim Uva, Hashamayim u'ba'aretz le'Adonai hamamlacha misnaseh lechol ro'emu Adonenu v'ishtachavu ledom raglav
וישתחוו להר קודשו.
כי גדול אדוני Eloheinu. May we see everyone. Shabbat shalom. We are now reading from the Torah. You can follow the reading in the large red books little darker red books. Page 747. As Rabbi Jenny noted, this is a double parsha, Behar Bechukotai. And we will be primarily reading, I believe, from Behar. So we're in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 3. And Bonnie is our reader. It's a call to the Torah for the first aliyah to the Torah for blessings of the proud parents. Yamdu Chaim ben Avram Basara, ben Ve'emuna, bat Avram Basara, l'aliyah Rishona. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bahar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Im bechukotai telechu, v'at mitzvotai tishmeru, v'asitem otam, v'natati gishmechem v'itam, v'natana ha'aretz yevula, v'etz hasadeh yitain piryoho, v'hisig lachem daishet batzir, uvatzir yasig et zara, v'achaltem licham, v'achaltem lachmechem lasova, v'shavtem lavetach,
Be'artechem. Shkoyach.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Manata Bechotenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Shkoyach Mazal Tov. We now are on page 752. We're in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 44. We're in Parshat Bechukotai. I made a mistake before. It says double parsha. And for this, we call forward our bat mitzvah to offer a special aliyah in honor of our bat mitzvah. Tamod, 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 vachorat, bat mitzvah, Chana, bat Chaim ve'emuna, la maftira chiski. You got it, you got it.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'af gam zod biotam be'eretz oyevehem lo me'astim velo ge'altim lechalotam lehaper biriti itam ki ani Adonai Elohehem ve'zacharti lahem berit rishonim asher hotzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim le'enei hagoyim lichyot lahem le'elohim ani Adonai ele hachukim v'hamishpatim lehatorot asher natan Adonai Beino uvein b'nei Yisrael behar Sinai beyad Moshe.
Shkoyach.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Simitav, mazel tov, mazel tov, simitav, simitav, mazel tov, mazel tov, simitav, simitav, mazel tov, mazel tov, simitav. Elano, yelano, yelano. Tov. We rise together as the Torah is going to be dressed together, Nachon, and lifted as well. Yefet. V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe l'nei bnei Yisrael u'di Adonai Iyad Moshe.
Yalla, yalla, la, la,
Ya 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 ya. Everyone. Continue now the Haftarah section from the prophets, Prophet Jeremiah, for Parshat Bechukotai. Bakasha, Jet.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar bin ve'im tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem ha'ne'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher baTorah uv'moshavdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'inviyeh ha'emet v'tzedek. Adonai uzi uma uzi unusi beyom tzavra elecha goyim yavo'u me'afsei aretz V'yomeru ach shaker nachalu avotenu havel ve'en bamoil hayaseh lo adam Elohim v'himalo Elohim lachen hinani modiyam bapa'am hazot odiyem et yadi vet gevurati v'yadeu kishemi Adonai Chatat Yehuda Ketuva Be'et Barzel B'tzipo Ren Shamir Charusha Alu Achlibam Ulkarnot Mizbechotechem Kiskor B'neihem Mizbechotam V'sherehem Al Eitz Ranan Al Givaot HaGivahot Harari Basada Chelachachol otzrotecha lavazetain bamotecha bechatat bechol givulecha v'shamatta uvcha minachalatecha asher natati lach v'ha'avadticha et oyevecha be'aretz asher lo yadata ki eish Kedachtem be'api ad olam tuka ko amar Adonai arur hagaver asher yiftach be'adam v'sam basar zero umin Adonai asur libo v'haya ke'ar be'arava v'lo yiraki yavo tov v'shachan hararim bamidbar Eretz Melecha velo teshev Baruch HaGaver asher yiftach be'Adonai v'haya Adonai miftacho v'haya ke'etz shatul al mayim v'al yuval yeshalav sharashav v'lo yiraki yavochom v'haya alehu ra'anan Uvishnat bat soret lo yidag v'lo yamish me'asot peri akov halev mikol mayim chayim v'anus hu miyeda'enu ani Adonai choker lev bochen kelayot v'latet la'ish kidrachav kifri Ma'alala, kore dagar velo yalad, Osa osher velo v'mishpat v'chatzi yamav ya'azvenu uv'acharito yihianavel kisam chavod marom merishon mikom mikdashenu mikveh Yisrael Adonai kol ozevecha yevoshu v'surai ba'aretz yikatevu ki yazevu mikor mayim chayim et Adonai Rafa'eni Adonai ve'erafei hoshieni ve'yivasheya ki tehilati ata Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam tzor kol ha'olamim tzadik b'chol ha'adarot ha'el ha'na'eman ha'omer ve'osa ha'medaber u'mkayem shakol devarav emet v'tzedek Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'ne'emanim devarecha v'davar echad mi devarecha Achor lo yashu frekam, ki el melech ne'eman, v'rachaman ata baruch ata Adonai. Ha'el ha'ne'eman, v'chol devarav.
Amen.
Rachem al Tzion ki hi beitayinu, v'la aluvat nefesh toshia bimheira v'yamenu baruch ata Adonai. Misameach Tzion bivanecha.
Amen.
Samechenu Adonai Eloheinu be'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha uvmalchut beit David mishichecha bimheira yavo v'yagel libenu al kisolo yeshev zar v'lo yinchalu od acherim et kivodo ki v'sham kodshecha nishbatalo Shalo yichve nero leolam va'ed baruch ata Adonai Magen David
Amen.
Al haTorah v'al ha'avodah v'al ha'nevi'im v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lichavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach uvmarachim ota yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai tamid leolam va'ed baruch ata Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Yasher Koch, beautifully done. Cantor Winter, I'm about to call you right now. I'm so impressed. Amazing. All right. Now, from Jet, we're going to hear a Devar Torah, which is a commentary, her thoughts, kind of a mini sermon based on the Torah portions of the week. We were studying for a while with her parents, too. It's been a blessing. And so, Vakasha, Jet.
Yeah.
Devar Torah.
Hopefully this won't fall off again. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
The Torah portion of this week is Bachar Bechukotai, but I'm just going to be focusing on Bechukotai because 2 is a lot. Parsha Bechukotai is about the rewards and punishments for following the commandments. For an example of a reward, the Parsha states, "If you follow my laws and faithfully observe my commandments, I will grant your rains in their season so that the earth shall yield its produce and the trees their fruit." An interesting question raised by this topic is why do good people have bad things happen to them? Rabbi Eliezer ben Simeon, who, I think I said that right, I hope I did, who lived in the time when the Jews were persecuted,
You're doing
who
great.
lived in the time when the Jews were persecuted by the Romans, teaches that human beings and nations should always see themselves as half-worthy because the next choice that we make will tip the balance to either reward or punishment. This implies that perhaps bad things happen to good people because we always have the chance to do a bad deed at any moment, which would lead us to be deserving of those punishments. Rabbi Harold S. Kushner states, our being human leaves us free to hurt each other, and God can't stop us without taking away the freedom that makes us human. This implies that humans might not be deserving of the bad things we deal with, but God cannot interfere, meaning that humans suffer unfair consequences. I believe that God does not actually reward or punish people. I believe that God gives us the strength to deal with our difficulties, but cannot control what happens in the world. What happens to us is the result of the decisions made by ourselves, others, and other events that come with the free nature of the world. But what were the rewards and punishments stated in the Torah? Where was I? Stated as a way of guiding humans to do the right thing, as a way of preventing humans from harming other humans. I do not think that God would actually punish their subjects because they created us out of a place of love and care. These methods might be outdated now, but at the time they could have been effective. In modern day, we should realize the intent behind the text and not just take it at face value. However, I want to dive deeper into the text. The parsha implies that people that follow the commandments are good and deserving of reward, and those that do not are deserving of punishment. Personally, I view this rigid set of guidelines as unproductive and harsh. I have long been of the belief that punishment is an unproductive form of teaching people to do the right thing. For start, it doesn't teach people the reasoning behind what they're doing. That means that if one is put into a position where they must make a decision without a right answer explicitly stated in the commandments, the person would not have been taught a good moral code to follow. That's not to say that a person cannot create their own moral code, just that the commandments might not succeed its perceived goal of giving people a strong moral code. If I were to teach a young person why to not push another kid down the slide, I would want them to know that the reason you don't shove people down slides is because it's morally wrong to do, and not because you don't get a cookie. I think that it's the same way with the commandments. Because there is meaning behind these rules and guidelines, it seems it would be beneficial for people to know the meaning behind them as opposed to just being told to blindly follow it because if you don't, your crops will fail. Being told the reasoning behind the rules you are meant to follow makes it easier to question them, an action that I believe is extremely important because of how it builds critical thinking strengths and confidence in one's own self. For an example that happened to me, one time when I was in second grade, a teacher was giving us a lecture about why we were being bad for dropping our books or something along those lines, and randomly she just, in the middle of the circle, told me, "Jet, go flip your card down," which was our class's way of disciplining children. And for me, personally, it was horrible. This was the first time I had ever had my card flipped down, and I was absolutely devastated. I was sobbing the entire day, and I didn't learn a thing from this experience. There are many other kids that constantly had their cards flipped down, which made it apparent that the system wasn't teaching anyone. I had no idea why I was told to flip my card down, so I didn't learn anything from it. I was just sad. This might happen the same way with other commandments in the Torah. In conclusion, I do not believe that the motivations provided in the Torah are effective. Parsha Bechukotai lays out many rewards and punishments for actions specifically disobeying the commandments, but doesn't explain the reasoning behind any of the commandments to be followed. A more effective way of providing guidelines to be followed is to lay out the commandments and the reasoning behind them and showing the natural consequences for each item. For example, explaining the reason why murder is wrong, and then stating the natural consequences, such as guilt, having people be mad at you, which you can easily see how murder might lead to that, legal repercussions, etc. Not only would this mean that more people who do not believe in God might follow these guidelines, it would also mean that people have a stronger sense of what to do in similar situations. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Beautiful job. Awesome. And we can invite Carol and Craig to come on up to the bima. And Jet, you can leave your papers there on the table. And you're going to come just take a couple steps down off the blocks here and just stand right here, and a little more, exactly, perfecting stuff like that. We're keeping our distance still, respecting the 6 feet. You can face us, Jet, and your parents are going to stand behind you. Just move a little bit over, Jet. Let your parents stand around you. Good. There you go. And Mom and Dad can have the nach. There we go. That's what we wanted to create. All right. Jet, you've blown us away here. First of all, your voice, like seriously, cantorial school, we're talking about that later. Okay, that's amazing. Like it's just beautiful, like out of these pipes, amazing. And the way you brought it, you feel like God's presence in your beautiful voice presentation.
Here are really
It's more than acoustics. It's also you. I also want to say that this Devar Torah is so rich and so thoughtful. I mean, it is a complicated or difficult or problematic text, and you really dissected it beautifully.
Yeah, Twitter would definitely cancel God if this.
That's a great way of putting it. But you did respectfully. You brought it through, okay? And you really got, into the reasons, very teenagey. I've heard a little bit in our household, too, about need for reasons, not just telling us what the punishments are. He really explained it beautifully and really got into the details of what it means to be an educator, what it means to be a teacher, a good teacher. But I want to say at the end, though, like you really talked about, some about the punishments you focused on. Okay, I get it. But there's also the reward, and the reward, as you noted, it's not like, life is like so clear about how it happens and who gets, and it's complicated. We don't always see it. But I want to say that this Shabbat, I feel God blessed us with a beautiful reward. Just seeing you shine. You have given such a reward to your parents, such a reward to your rabbis, your tutor, your family, all your friends. It's like sometimes I think God moves through people, and you brought a blessing and reward to all of us here, seeing you shine in your way, with your gifts, with all of your soul. And we feel blessed having been rewarded, being the presence of you in this beautiful moment. So we thank you for that, and we thank the Holy One for helping bring you to this moment. So we rise together as we offer a blessing. Invite the parents to place a talit over Jet's head. Yeah, yours or hers. Either one, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, you can do yours too, Mom. That's fine. Either one you want to do. Yeah, exactly. And Mom and Dad are going to place their hands on her head. Exactly. And we're going to offer her the oldest blessing in our Torah, the priestly blessing. Jet, may God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God always look upon you and grant you peace. And we say together, Amen. Okay. You can stand by the table with your parents. We are going to now offer a few specific prayers while the Torah is still out. The first one we're going to offer is a prayer for healing. As at this time, I'll invite Rabbi Jane to open up the ark. We offer this prayer for healing for those specifically in our congregation who are sadly struggling with illness and struggling with challenges, both on the external, those we see, and those on the internal as well, body, soul, and spirit. And then the world as well. This is really a prayer for our community, our country, for the world. All places still struggling with COVID, of course. It's clearly progressing. But it's been a real challenge. This is hard for all of us. The isolation, sadly in places like India and other places in the world where the disease is still penetrating and hurting so many. Our society in general, we're still struggling, issues of racism, systemic racism. There's a wide sense of what our world needs healing from. So as we offer this prayer for healing, as we open up the ark and really bring down God to help us to give blessing and healing, full healing to all those we pray for.
To make our lives a blessing, and let us
with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. While the Torah is still open, we have one more blessing to offer before we return the Torah to the Ark, which is a blessing for the new month. So as you know, of course, we have the regular American or Western calendar, but we also have the Hebrew calendar, which is based on the lunar months. You can open in your prayer books to follow along the Siddur to announce the new month.
180.
Page 180. And we are entering the Hebrew month of Sivan. Sivan is well known because a few days into Sivan, we received the Torah on Mount Sinai. So that is kind of the moment of getting the Torah, which I'll actually talk about in a moment in our sermon discussion. So that is going to happen this upcoming Wednesday, the new month. So we will read together, invite you in English with me on the top of page 180 to read in English the first paragraph together. May it be your will, Adonai our God and God of our ancestors, grant that this month brings us goodness and blessing, and bestow on us a long life, a life that is peaceful, a life that is good, a life that is blessed, a life with proper sustenance, a life with physical vitality, a life conscious of heaven's demands and wary of sin, a life free of shame and reproach, a life of abundance and honor, a life of love of Torah, conscious of heaven's demands, a life in which the worthy desires of our hearts are fulfilled. Amen. Misha sanisim lavotenu, Misha sanisim leimotenu, וגאלותם מעבדות לחירות, יגאל אותנו בקרוב, ויקבץ נידחנו מארבע כנפות הארץ, חברים גוי ישראל, ונאמר אמן. ראש חודש סיוון, יהיה ביום רביעי, הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל, לטובה.
ראש חודש סיוון, יהיה ביום הרביעי, הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל, לטובה.
יחדשו הקדוש ברוך הוא עלינו ועל כל עמו בית ישראל, לחיים ולשלום, לששון ושמחה, לישועה ונחמה, ונאמר אמן. יהללו את שם אדוני, ונשגב שמו לבדו, עוד ארץ ושמיים, וירן גרן לעמוד הילה לכו, עשידה לבני ישראל, עם גרובו, הללויה, הללויה, עמי, למחזיקים בה, איי 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 איי, ודומם, מאושר, דרך שלום, השיבנו אדוני, לבנה שובה, ימינו כדי. You may be seated, everyone. Shabbat shalom. So, you just received a piece of paper, hopefully, from our voluntold usher, Bonnie. She was voluntold in the last second. Bani. We're passing some text here. Our custom here, some of you, you've been here a few times, even if you've been guests, you may know our customs here. We're so glad to see some old faces that are a loving part of our congregation. And for you that are regulars, our custom here is to not do a traditional sermon per se, but to do a discussion and discuss something about the Torah portions of the week. We're in the pandemic, everything's a little different here. So what we've been doing is that Rabbi Jenny and I, we engage in a conversation, a Torah study session called a Chavruta Learning. And then we're going to we have people here on Zoom who have comments to put in the chat. We let you do that. And those that are here in the congregation, you too can participate if you'd like. There is no Jewish guilt or pressure. You don't have to. It's also hard with the Mass, we know. And if you're not Jewish, it doesn't matter. Everyone's invited to offer their thoughts and comments about the subject of the Torah portion of the week. And what we'll do, if you do wish to participate from the congregation here, is you'll say it and we'll repeat it because there's no microphone for you and not everyone at home all over the technology can hear you. So we invite you to participate if you'd like or just to listen, to enjoy the conversation. And what we do is we're going to discuss aspect of this. Now, our bat mitzvah focused on, we said two Torah portions she mentioned. One's called Bahar, one's called Bechukotai. Bechukotai, as she noted, focuses a lot on this issue of reward and punishment. Does God reward and punish? Is it effective? We heard that up from our bat mitzvah. Now, the first Torah portion, though, which we're going to focus on for me and Rabbi Jenny, is called Bahar. Bahar means on the mountain, and it says Bahar Sinai, on Mount Sinai. So, we are in the book of Leviticus, in the middle of the Torah, and it says, on Mount Sinai, we're giving this Torah teaching to you. Now, the natural question, and you'd ask, you say, wait a second. I thought the whole Torah was given on Mount Sinai, everything, all of the 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, etc. Why this specific Torah portion, the emphasis on this Torah portion comes on Mount Sinai? Didn't all of the Torah versions come on Mount Sinai? Isn't that what we learned from the Charlton Heston version, if you saw, or Prince of Egypt, or whatever? Okay. Didn't we know all? So why did the Torah emphasize that this particular Torah portion, Bahar, happened on Sinai? Well, the biggest theme in that Torah portion might give us a hint. And Rabbi Jenny mentioned at the beginning that the biggest focus in the first Torah portion is about Shemitah, and that's about this 7-year cycle in the Torah, where every 7 years you return land back to its original owners, you release debts, etc., etc. And every 50 years is something called the Jubilee year. And on the Jubilee year, there's a famous line. It says in this Torah portion, "Let freedom be called out be declared throughout the land." It comes from this Torah portion, Bahar, which, by the way, is also on a famous cracked bell somewhere in Philadelphia. If you've ever seen it before. Okay, it says that's exactly where it comes from. It comes from the book of Leviticus, from this Torah portion itself. It means complete and utter freedom throughout the entire land, at that point, the land of Israel. And so the question we're really going to say here is, well, Mount Sinai, the whole Torah, fine. But why the focus? Well, it must have something to do with the most important theme in the Torah portion, which is this issue of releasing debts, returning to original owners, economic kind of equality, something about this releasing of people who are enslaved or indentured servants. There must be something about this that somehow connects to Mount Sinai. So what we're going to do here is, let's read the passage that explains this whole releasing, what's called the Shemitah, and then let's see if there's any connection between the mountain, Mount Sinai, this particular mitzvah. Can we somehow piece these things together, hopefully successfully, into a sermon here about why Mount Sinai, why this mitzvah. So, Rabbi Jay, will you read out here in English where it says, just describes the paragraph about Shemitah, and then we'll go a little further from there. All right? Bakasha.
When you come to the land that I am giving you, the land shall rest a Shabbat to Adonai, to God. But in the 7th year, the land shall have a complete rest, a Shabbat to Adonai. It shall be a year of rest for the land. And the produce of the Shabbat of the land shall be yours to eat for you, for your male and female slaves, for your hired worker and resident who live with you, and all of its produce may be eaten also by your domestic animals and by the beasts that are in your land. Okay,
so just to be clear here, this focus here, I didn't even mention it before, is that every 7th year, you can't, cultivate your land. You have to just kind of let it chill, be
And it is open to be enjoyed and partaken of by everyone.
Exactly. It's not like you have these boundaries anymore. So if it's just crops, right, you just basically say, for 6 years, I'm working it. 7th year, I have to sit back. Now, I can enjoy the food of it, but only what comes naturally. And it's not just for something I can determine either for myself or how I sell it. I have to let it be for whoever wants to come do it. Now, by the way, this is a lot of questions rabbis already ask about the economics of this. Did it actually work? How did it function? Let's put that to the side for a second. Let's just enjoy this for the moment, all right? But you can still enjoy the fruit of it, but you can't control it in a sense, okay?
That's correct.
So the question...
And it's no longer yours in the same way.
Exactly.
So normally we have like our house and there's a property line, like this is ours.
Exactly.
And if somebody were to come on our land, we would able to call a person of the law and say like, get away.
Exactly.
But this is a total release from those kinds of orientations to what is mine.
So the question is, why is this thing about laying it fallow and you have to let everyone come in, you have to return the land, et cetera, to be kind of like an open space? Why is that given on Mount Sinai? And for that, we have a theory. This is what rabbis do. We have theories, okay? This is our theory. This is our hypothesis. That it has something to do about Mount Sinai as much as it has something to do about this laying the year fallow. And there's a famous, famous teaching from the rabbis, from the Talmud, years ago, thousands of years ago. They teach about why did God pick to give the Torah on Mount Sinai as opposed to other beautiful, very large mountains in the land of Israel, in that area and kind of the Middle East. Could have given on any special mountain. Why was Mount Sinai chosen? Maybe that will help clarify for us a connection between Mount Sinai
And this mitzvah.
And this mitzvah, exactly. We read this midrash, Rabbi Jay.
Okay. When the Holy One, blessed be God, wanted to give the Torah to Israel, a few mountains sought to be the one where the Torah was given. First came Mount Carmel, and then Mount Tabor.
These are two mountains in the land of Israel to this day. Mount Carmel is near Haifa, and Mount Tabor is kind of actually it's called the West Bank today, okay?
Mount Tabor said, it would be fitting for the holy presence to rest on me, for I am taller than all the other mountains, and the flood of Noah never reached my peak.
Okay, so basically he's saying, like, I'm the tallest, I'm the biggest one around, pick me. That's why I want to get the Torah. Also, when Noah's flood happened, generations before, the waters filled up every place on the earth except me. I was so tall, it didn't affect me. Okay, so basically saying, like, everyone else is chopped liver, and I'm the best because I'm the tallest. All right, that's Mount Tabor. What about Mount Carmel?
Mount Carmel said, it would be fitting for the holy presence to rest upon me, because I was placed in the middle, and they crossed the sea over me.
Okay, so this is like some interesting theory. I guess Mount Carmel thinks that somehow this current mountain that's in the land of Israel, it kind of got transferred somewhere. We were leaving Egypt, and we walked over it, so it had the holy touch of our freedom from Egypt. So Carmel thinks it's special because it helped us be free from Egypt. Tabor thinks it's special because it's the tallest. And why didn't God pick those?
The Holy One, blessed be God, said, you both have already been disqualified before me
Chopped liver.
because of your arrogance. You are all disqualified before me. I desire nothing but Sinai, which is lower than all of you.
Okay, and for some, I don't know, some of you ever been to the Sinai Desert? I actually was there and in college in one of those crazy things. I actually slept on the mountain for a night that's supposedly Mount Sinai. Don't scientifically check it, but that's what the tourist people said, okay? And it's a whole beautiful view. You actually can see like Saudi Arabia and Egypt. It's amazing, okay? But it's not the highest mountain. It's absolutely not it's not chopped. I mean, it's got something, okay, but it's a mountain, but there's way higher mountains around it. So it's picked because it actually, Dafka, is lower than the other mountains. God says, I don't want to give the Torah to on a mountain, that is haughty and tall, or thinks very big of itself because it got to help us be to freedom. I want a mountain that's humble. I want a mountain that's comfortable being lower. So what is it about Mount Sinai and this mitzvah about laying the land fallow, releasing, no property ownership? What can we make a connection between the two? Should we open up for a question first? You want to give your chap on
Well, I
it?
was just going to add
frame
a
it more.
little bit more context that the word for humility in Hebrew is anava. And usually when we say humility in like English and Western culture, we think about being like truly low, like meek or quiet or sort of almost invisible, like cowering. It has that sort of implication. But anava, according to Jewish teaching, is really about being right-sized. It's about kind of knowing how much space you take up and feeling oriented to the world in a way that is both not too big, but also not too small.
Yes.
And this mountain that Rabbi Eric is referring to is still extraordinary, right? Like, let's just say that that is the mountain. I mean, it's still amazing in a landscape of relative lowness to then see this beautiful, natural structure in front of you. But it is also not the Rockies, right? So it's about being oriented towards space in a way that's right-sized, not so much about being invisible or meek or too small. So I think it's important to understand that in the context of as we make that connection to Shemitah, which again is about inviting us to kind of understand where we are in the world. What's our role? Are we totally in control of everything?
Do we own everything?
Do we own everything? Do we make everything happen or not happen? Do we make all the laws? Do we set the weather in motion? Do we do everything? Or on the very far other end of the spectrum, are we nothing? Are our actions meaningless? And do they not have any impact or consequences on the world around us? And perhaps it's suggesting that we're somewhere in the middle. And it's easy for us to fall under the illusion, sometimes, for some of us, that we're a little bit farther on the side of we're actually in control of everything. And so this perhaps becomes like the Shemitah and Shabbat, a corrective for that, to help us bring us somewhere closer into the middle where we're embodying a Sinai orientation to the world.
I'm trying to say, like, for example, sometimes we're having a conversation about something, and some people in our family will say, "We don't know the answer to that question. Let's go Google and just say, Siri, what does it mean?" And I love when sometimes Siri doesn't say the right answer, doesn't know the answer, because it shows that there are certain questions in life that the phone doesn't know the answer to, right? That actually exists, right? So the Shemitah reminds us that we think we know, and we do know, and we are learning more and more. Look at these vaccines. Look how unbelievable we've progressed in certain places. But some parts of life, some of the most meaningful parts of life, you'll never get the answer on your phone, right? That's the humility aspect. It's a balancing act.
And I think science is a perfect example to exemplify this. We know so much.
Amazing.
And any good scientist will tell you we only know what we know so far. And as we encounter the challenges of this pandemic too, I'm looking at some of the other families in this room who became, celebrated bar bat mitzvah in a year ago. And we just had no idea, even the smartest scientists in the world, the smartest public health people in the world, we just didn't know what the next months, what the next year would bring, and we still don't know.
Right.
Yes. So it's
and I think
very
it's powerful.
humbling.
Exactly. Instead of saying, that's an embarrassment, I think it's a source of true a humbling moment.
There's a strength to that because
Exactly.
it's true.
And I think this generation in particular is going to always, I was just talking to a congregant recently, said that this person said, just like some people experienced the Depression in 1929, and it affected people's lives way, way after, even if, please God, they did better financially. They remember that experience of the Depression, sadly, or the Holocaust for those who survived. You hold on to that regardless of your current. So too, what about this experience for all of us, but especially our young people, are going to hold on for good? Part of that is a certain humbling, a certain sense like the world, things can happen that are unpredictable that we didn't expect, that come from all kinds of places. It's a powerful spiritual teaching as well. It's a reminder. It's not one we wanted. I didn't ask for it. I hope it never happens again. But it is a teaching about what the limits are of what we have and how just because something's scheduled on the calendar, a lot can happen between now and what gets scheduled on the calendar.
Absolutely.
All right. Let me go here and take a look at our Zoom chevra here. Wow, Gavald, I see 30-something comments. Uh-oh, let's see. We have okay, a lot of them were just anyone in our Zoom community want to invite any comments here about what they think about this question? So it's actually this was actually other comments were being made beforehand. They were chatting and gossiping about it. No, they were just talking beforehand. Anyone here in our congregation have any thoughts about this, would like to offer an opinion or thought? Of course, we'll repeat it for everybody else if you'd like. Feel no pressure. Okay. Yes, please, Jen Kaplan, Bakasha.
I think it has to do a lot with access, which is the whole idea that something is available not just to people who can reach the highest mountain or own the
Fair.
A lot of that is what you're born with, what you're able to get. And so if you give people access to something,
Yeah.
You want to repeat that? What
Yeah, so Jen Kaplan just shared a really powerful point that she's thinking about this in terms of access, that it's so much of life is about what you have access to, and that is often connected to just who you're born to and what those circumstances of life are. And so the Shemitah is, I'm sort of adding on here, but the Shemitah is a way of rebalancing who has access to what. It's a corrective on, it's not, doesn't just matter what you're born into, but no, every 7 years, everybody has equal access. And so too, Mount Sinai embodies a mountain that is ultimately accessible, right? It's not the highest peak in the Himalayas. It's a mountain that we have access to, and that totally rebalances the
awesome.
world.
Also, Shemitah as well. It's a beautiful idea. When the land is fallow, it's actually accessible to anybody. It's not restricted to anybody that have access to it. Yafeh. I love that connection. All right. I assume Deborah Goldstein has something to say. Deborah, come on, Deborah. What do you say?
Well, I like what you said about the difference in humility in English and in Hebrew. I hate this midrash.
Tell us how you really feel, Deborah. Okay.
Because I feel like it's a way of thinking that also says know your place and stay in your place. Keep your place. And I think that's really been used against women
Yeah.
for centuries, but not just women. So, Mount Sinai doesn't brag about what it is. It's a nice girl. It's a good girl. This is its place. It knows who it is. And so God pats it on the head and says, you'll get this reward. And I find that very troubling. And I think some of it goes back to what Jen says about access, that's very nice to say the Shemitah year gives everybody access. It's 1 year out of 7. So that's really nice. And they get a lot, and nobody owns anything, although I'm guessing that's always exactly the way it was in practice.
Right.
And then everything goes back to the way it was.
All right, Deborah Gavalt. All right. We conversed Deborah and Jet. You guys are coming after the Torah this Shabbos. All right. No, I mean, Deborah makes a great point. She just said, first of all, look, this midrash has got a problem. What Jenny and I were giving, very rabbinic, positive spin. Deborah's saying, wait, it's a problem. Okay, look, it could be read as like, hey, other mountains, like, stay where you are, stay in your place, and humility
Is rewarded.
Humility sounds positive, but it's a way of saying, don't rock the boat, don't push ahead, don't change things when things are, particularly if they're unjust. Then it's like a stay in your place and don't make a difference in a sense. Don't do tikkun olam. I can see your argument. Very compelling argument, Deborah. All right, good point. And then she took it further. What was the second part she put to it? Is that a second point? Oh yeah, it's only once every 7 years. Exactly. That's right. So say, okay, look, Rabbi, good point. Once out of 7 years, it requires more access. To Jen's point, but it's only 1 out of 7. So what happens the other 6 years that we have a problematic? I mean, Deborah's basically saying like the economics are perhaps open on 1 year of access, but the 6 years of lack of access, and that is a very profound point as well. It's a very fair point.
And I would just add, I don't disagree with Deborah now or ever.
Since preschool.
But another way of looking at it is to say that, the mitzvot, according to Maimonides, the Rambam, the mitzvot, the commandments are here to help us evolve as human beings. And so, as humans, we're just not ready to create a society in which there is no ownership and there is sort of radical equality. Some of us would like that, but instead, the mitzvot here are offering a corrective to on Shabbat, 1 day of the week, and then every 7 years, and then every 50 years, to help refine us and help us just evolve so that we don't fall prey to the worst possible human instincts. We're continuing to move in a direction towards greater accessibility, greater equality, greter equity, and that is perhaps the process of thousands of years, literally.
Shockingly, I agree with Rabbi Jay. I think this is an interesting point about, like, the idea would be that maybe the Shemitah year is a catch-all when the society has reached such a point where it's denying any access. Great. I think it's a very powerful point. Deborah's point is basically saying, look, it should be integrated within the 6 first years too. And I think she's right. So therefore it's like, but if it really hasn't reached that, then by the 7th year, at least you're going to have to hit a reset button.
And my
but
guess
it should be in the first 6 years too.
After year 7, like our consciousness
Should
as a
start again,
society
ideally.
is hopefully in a different place. I mean, I think about the changes around equity and access that are happening in our society right now. And it's dynamic, right? Like we have moments of tremendous awakening and there's resistance to that also. And then we slide back and then something happens that pushes us forward. But we never go back to, 10 years ago. We're working now with this greater understanding, which is far from what I hope will be the final kind of understanding.
All right, I'll make sure any comments here. The Zoom is quiet today, remarkably. Any other comments from the Chevra here before I give one last one? Oh, Alana, Vakasha, and Alana.
So why are we so frail that we need thousands of years to get to this?
Another Rabbi Winter, Gavalt. You want to say what she said, Rabbi Jay?
Yeah, so she said, why are we so frail as a human
Thousands years.
species that it takes thousands of years for us essentially to grow and evolve? I don't have an official
Siri can't answer that question either.
That I would say I don't know.
That's true.
But I do know that the Torah's orientation to humans is that, as our bat mitzvah, Jet said, that part of how we're created, part of the divine inside each of us is our capacity to have free choice, to make mistakes, to make decisions for the good of ourselves and for the world. That's part of how we're built. And so by virtue of that, we also have the ability to do bad things and to do things that are not in interest of preserving the planet or doing what's good for our neighbor. And so we're just all on a journey to keep growing. As long as we're alive, as long as we're engaged, and our spiritual work is to just keep growing.
Okay, not to
Keep
give up.
growing.
I'll just add to it, and maybe this we'll wrap up and say, I think that, what Alana says is powerful. The question of how we relate to the earth, how do we control it, when do we let go, how do we treat it properly so it stays on forever, has been a thousands-of-year-old question that we still, to this moment, have not been able to deal with. So it's the profundity of the Torah is that it is basically saying, look, you could theoretically just dominate and destroy the whole thing. You could. But every 7th year, hold it back. It's not just because God wants you to, so to speak, but it's actually good for you to do so, right? But that question of how to hold back, the challenge of holding back, the discipline required, what it means for a society to hold back for its best interests. I mean, we look at it right now.
Look at our planet.
Look at our planet right now. And I think about, the advancements of electric cars and, please God, new renewable energy and various things. Perhaps this is an attempt to try to let the world be fallow again. But it is a constant tension between our desire, need, and even a mitzvah to do things and produce in the world, but not do so much that we destroy the world at the same time. Like some kind of balance. It's very hard.
And
very hard.
unfortunately, apropos of Jet's Torah teaching, sometimes consequences are
the only way we learn.
we learn.
Yeah, it's true.
We've known about climate change for a long time now, with different kinds of degree of certainty and metrics for understanding that. And I do wonder if, sometimes it just takes the consequences feeling close enough and real enough and big enough for us to begin thinking in new ways and so that we can self-correct. Hopefully, we'll do that as a society. So yasher koach to everyone.
Great learning
for
together.
learning.
Shikoch. You can take your text and pass them over to the middle, and Bonnie, we have voluntold her to be mentioned. Thank you so much, Bonnie, to collect the text together. We're now going to rise together on page 184 for Chatzi Kaddish Musaf. We rise together.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה,
אמן.
לבד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי,
בהיינו ויומנו חיירו בית ישראל, בגלה
ובזמן קרים
וימרו עמי אש מרבה. וחתן אליכם עתה,
תאמינן בעלמא
ואמרו.
Amen.
Amen. So, Chevra, feet together towards Jerusalem, pages 185 through 187. We daven together. The rest is done silently.
Adonai
Nai zevatai dila uia gedilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloi avotenu v'imotenu Eloi Abraham Eloi Ezra Yaakov Eloi Sarah Eloi Rivka Eloi Rachel Leah האל הגדול הגיבור הנורא אל עליון גם אל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואמהות ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד מושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים את הרב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מעגל חיים בחסד, וחיי מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, וחיה באמונתו. שני אהבה מחבר גבורות ומדום אליו מלך מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה
ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני
בשמו
לחיי המתים
אמן
נריצך ונקדישך כצוציח שרפי קודש
המקדישים שמך בקודש
הכתוב על ירמיך
והרזל זה ואמר קדוש קדוש קדוש
אדוני צבאות
מלוך הארץ כבודו
כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שואלים זה לזה האם מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו
ממקומו הוא יבן ברחמים ויחונם המייחדים שמו ערב ובוקר
וכל יום תמיד
פעמיים באהבה
שמה אומרים שמה ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד
הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי להיות לכם לאלוהים
אני אדוני אלוהיכם
ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור
ימלוך נא לעולייך ציון לדור ודור הללויה
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפילול ושתלם ועד כי על מלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני
בשמו
האל
הקדוש.
הקדוש.
Amen. It's time for silent prayer.
Im shalom tovah u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel.
203.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
והעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחי יכול ומכון, ובחי את כל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב יאמרו,
אמן. יש שמי רבה מבורא לעולם ועלמא יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה
בריאו.
לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחה ונחמתה, דמירן ועלמה ויאמרו,
אמן.
תתקבץ לדון ואותן תוך ישראל, קדם אבהון דבשמי ויאמרו,
אמן.
יהי שלום ארון שמיה, וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל ויאמרו,
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו,
הוא יעשה שלום.
עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל שרי תבל, ויאמרו אמן.
204.
אין
אלוהינו, אין כאדוננו, אין כמלכנו, אין כמושיענו, מי אלוהינו, מי כאדוננו, מי מלכנו, מי כמושיענו. נודה לאלוהינו, נודה לאדוננו, נודה למלכנו, נודה למושיענו.
ברוך
אלוהינו, ברוך אדוננו, ברוך מלכנו, ברוך מושיענו. אתה הוא
אלוהינו,
אתה הוא אדוננו, אתה הוא מלכנו, אתה הוא מושיענו.
אתה הוא שכתירו
Please rise.
אבותינו,
לבניך אדור את הסמים, עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. את גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו יהי הרצון, לא שמענו נשבבות אדמה, שלא שם אלוקינו כהם, גר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. למען ויוסנו את משה וכל השמיים. על כן נקבל לכל הנתקים. היום ההוא, היום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד. We turn to page 207. We invite those in mourning or observing a yard site on this Shabbat. I invite you to rise on page 207 for mourners. Kaddish, Kaddish, Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah.
אמן.
Be'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru.
אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה. דמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה. וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו.
אמן.
Shabbat shalom everyone. We invite our bat mitzvah and John Bograd, tutor and great teacher in our community, to offer some gifts to our bat mitzvah.
So, Jet, as you stand here today, I hope you know that not only is your family proud of you, but your entire Beth Meyer family is proud of you as well. And to help you continue on your Jewish journey, I am pleased to offer you a few gifts from the Sisterhood and Men's Club. We have a mezuzah and kosher parchment, a Tanakh and certificate of Bar Mitzvah from the Board of Trustees, and a Kiddush cup from this year's B'nai Mitzvah class. You stand here today as an adult member of our congregation, and we are excited to watch you continue your Jewish journey as a member of the Beth Meyer community.
Amen.
Mazal tov.
Mazel tov, mazal tov, Jay, shikoyach. You can take all those
leave
bench
it.
press that back.
You can take
Okay. Tov, couple announcements here. Say mazal tov to the Winter family, to Jet, who rocked it today. We're so proud of you and everyone. We're glad to see everyone. Just so happy to see everyone here on a happy occasion, kind of gathering together as much as possible. It's a pleasure. Couple announcements in general. Tov, we have speaker nights on Monday nights throughout the entire year, basically throughout the pandemic, which is May 10th, this Monday night. Affordable housing panel will take place on Monday night. It's a big issue here in our community, at 7:30 on Zoom. And also, there will also be a speaker through the Sisterhood as well at 7:30. A speaker on the topic is called Monument Men. Is that about the monuments? Does anyone know what that's about, or something about a group? No one from Sisterhood could tell us? Nobody knows. Okay, you look up, you'll see online more information. The holiday of Shavuot's coming in about 10 days or so, 9 days or so. It is the holiday we lead toward from Passover. It's where we commemorate receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. Sunday, May 16th at 10 a.m. through noon, students pre-K through 5th grade with siblings and families under leadership of Kathy Kaplan will meet her outside learning and Shavuot games and crafts. Current students, previous students, prospective, everybody, the whole Ganza Mishpacha, everyone can come. If you're not currently enrolled in religious school, please RSVP to Kathy so she can have appropriate supplies available. Then from 12 to 2 is a family ice cream social. It's a tradition to have dairy foods on Shavuot. I'm definitely down with that. From 12 to 2, Lumpy's ice cream truck in the house here at the shul. Come enjoy. Then 2 to 4 on that Sunday as we rockin', Shavuot Shmooze with cheesecake and other dairy desserts. Take your lactose intolerant stuff beforehand. Come all day, fired up on Sunday, May 16th. Then at night, we have our study. It's tradition to study Torah in honor of receiving the Torah throughout the night. At 7 p.m., a very cool Jewish farming discussion starting at 7 p.m. It's a panel. There are now 3 farms here in North Carolina. Some of you might know this, that are owned by Jewish families, which are designed to support the Jewish community and beyond, of course, but the idea being to take the laws of the Torah and practice of the Torah and to help bring them into real life here. So like things like the corner of your fields, leaving for the poor and the stranger. The Shemitah, as we studied today, the 7th year. We have 3 farms. One's in Asheville, one's in Hillsborough, and one's here in downtown Raleigh, called the Well-Fed Garden. Check it out. There'll be a discussion about that 7 p.m. on that Sunday night, May 16th, followed by the holiday services on May 17th and 18th on Zoom. And our 146th annual congregation meeting of our synagogue, believe it or not. 146th, Monday, June 7th at 7:30. And prior to that, there's an informational meeting if you want to ask as many questions as you'd like to ask on May 20th at 7:30. That offers all our announcements. Remember, we have Minyan tomorrow morning on Sundays at 9 and Wednesday at 7. With that, we're going to conclude here. We're going to invite Jet and John to come back up to the bima. We're going to conclude with Adon Olam, page 211, and we'll complete with Kiddush, 211.
Adon Olam,
Asher malav b'terem bo yitzir nira
Nasa
v'hesavo Levado imlok nora, Elohaya kosi.
Menat
Kosi.
kosi.
Please rise, everyone. Ve'ado avgid rochi. Jet, here you go. Ve'ayira. I want the girls to come forward here. Adonai li, Adonai li, Elohim. Okay, Berach Adonai, Yom HaShabbat v'Kadshehu Savri.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Borei. Amen. You can take your mask off and drink it, actually. There we go. Mazel tov, Shabbat shalom. All right, service concluded. Mazel tov, Yishar koach, Yishar koach. Mazel tov, everyone.
Well, Talia since age 5.
A new friend. A new friend.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, you guys. Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, everyone. You're done. You're free.